Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Lebanon Board of Park Commissioners. I'd like to call the meeting to order and let the record show that all members are present. The first item on the agenda is election of 2025 officers, which would be president, vice president, and secretary. And I'd open the floor for nominations.
I would nominate Lori for you to continue as president.
Okay, we have one nomination for president. What about vice president and secretary?
Do you need a second to her motion, or do you want to wait till they're all done?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Now for vice president.
I would nominate that she remain vice president.
Okay, I have a motion to nominate Diane Scott for vice president. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Now nomination for secretary.
I nominate that girl on the end.
Jessica Lawler for secretary. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. If everyone's had a chance to look at the minutes from the November meeting, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Under old business this evening, Kevin Krulik with project updates.
Thank you. Good evening. A couple of project updates. Things slowing down as we run out of workable weather here, but still a lot going on. Talk about Fordyce Road for a little bit. We're still pushing that as much as we can. Happy to report, as far as the Parks Department is concerned, we started constructing and surfacing the asphalt path east of Grant Street. Probably about half of the way through the project was ready for asphalt surface. The area over there in front of the new Central Elementary, we will continue to try to work through that section, but it was not prepped for subgrade treatment and for stone, so we're going to wait and see what the weather provides us there. But happy to report that we have started constructing the path, and if you've been through there, the road is surfaced now. By the end of the week, all the driveways will be poured, and we'll continue to work on sidewalks as the weather allows. On the Whit Road project, again, a project that will include pathway systems and extensions. Essentially, at this point, we're working through all of our environmental permitting. That will run through April before we move into right-of-way purchasing and move that project forward for a 2027 potential construction timeline. Noble Street, not a lot to report there. We had our kickoff meeting on the 3rd of December, and you will start seeing construction staking going up for survey work along the project. Excuse me, not construction staking, but staking for survey work. So you might see some of those flags start going up as the survey crews work through there and begin to kick off design. Jumping to some more, traditional park projects. Stone Eater, the only thing to update you there is that we are aware of some errors on our information kiosk, and we're working with our sign manufacturer to correct those. So we are working on getting some of those areas reprinted and reposted to that sign. The Old Street Garage, you'll hear more on that tonight, so I won't bother you giving any details there, but there'll be a presentation on the plan for the redevelopment of that later in the meeting. Pickleball courts, happy to report, those are now fully under contract, and we've been given all the proper notices to proceed on that. I know you had asked, Brett had asked for a schedule of values. Now that we're under contract, I've requested that, and hopefully we'll get that for you shortly and be able to share that with you. And we could look for some potential cost savings and possibly reuse of equipment on those issues at that time. The fishing pier at Admiral Longley Park, really it's done at this point, with the exception of the ramp railings, which are now, as of today, under contract. There's also some punch list repair items on the fishing pier that are still being worked on with with Deaton's, the contractor on that project as well. And then there's some miscellaneous backfilling and seeding that will, unfortunately, this time of year cannot really happen until we get to spring, but that is on the schedule. We also, through the American Rescue Plan money, we've had a few projects over budget, a few projects under budget, and we're going to use some of those under budget items to add a lot of lighting to the various areas of Admiral Longley Park. So as of today, I've ordered 55 new lights. Those will be put in around the fishing pier, around path extensions, other areas around the perimeter of the park to prepare for additional future path extensions. So we're working on that to spend all that American Rescue Plan money, which had to be obligated by the end of the year. And so we've done that. Big Four Trailhead, fully under contract there on the parking improvements, which are scheduled for in the spring. And the fence enclosure for the portalets is continuing to be worked on. There's been some delays there just due to weather, but I'm told that those should be wrapping up here before the end of the year. Reese Park, that portalet enclosure is complete. The fencing along the parking lot is also complete. The dog park and the hop pond are also scheduled to get enclosures. Those have not started yet, but are scheduled to be done by the end of the year. I'm sorry, then the last project there is the extension of the trail system, beginning to build that perimeter path around Admiral Longley Park. We put out an invitation to quote for the first section of that, which is to extend a trail from the Big Four Trail at the northwest corner of the football fields, along the west side of the football fields, down and crossing the park entry and exit roads, and tying that back into some of those access drives to the south. That came in way under budget, so again, we're also using the remainder of that budget to purchase light poles that will be installed next year. And I think that's really all I have. Anderson Lane update on the trail work up there. All of the reflectors are now complete. The lighting, all the lighting east of Witham is also complete. There are, I think, 2 additional lights that are waiting for some equipment so they can be installed along that section parallel and adjacent to Witham Hospital. But all the lights, the 9 other lights east of there have been installed and are functional. And we've got a couple of minor casting adjustments that need to be made that are supposed to happen this week, and that will wrap up that project. And that's all the project updates I have. What questions can I answer?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This is just a clarification question regarding Stone Eater, and it's probably my own misunderstanding, is that during the whole process of developing all this, I had the understanding that the trails were year-round regardless of weather, and yet we've had some trails closed yet, like the last, I don't know, a few weeks, whenever that was.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand that?
Absolutely. So there's really 2 kinds of trail systems up there. There is the 5 miles of stone cross-country, all-weather, year-round trails, and we've never closed those. What does close are the about 2 miles of natural surface dirt trails that are in the perimeter of the park, in the wooded areas of the park. Those, because they're natural surface, when it gets wet, we do need to close those. And so when you see our Facebook updates where we'll change our profile picture from from green to yellow to red. If you read that picture, it will say that the cross-country trails are still open. So it's just those just the skill trails that we have to close due to any kind of inclement weather. This time of year, another color that changes is we'll mark trails blue, which means that they're closed unless the ground is frozen, and then you can ride on them when the ground is frozen. But when it thaws out, when we have these freeze and thaw cycles on a daily basis where it might be frozen in the morning, but a muddy mess in the afternoon, that's when we change the color to blue. So.
And that's, again, still talking just about the
Just talking
natural
about
surface
those
ones.
natural surface trails.
Okay.
All the stone trails have not closed yet.
Okay, that helps make sense, I get it.
And we don't anticipate they will ever need to close. So
Okay.
that was the purpose behind that method of construction.
And my other question is more of the Anderson Lane bike thing we brought up the last time you were here, that I was questioning about that narrow entrance on the far east end, how
Yeah.
if you're coming from the north and heading south, you can funnel into that, otherwise it's really almost
Correct. And we
impossible.
put up some additional reflectors there to try to denote that, and that green part of the pavement is going to get painted black.
Okay, so people realize that is not meant to be part
Exactly.
of the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was never really meant for people to be coming from the south to funnel into that unless they
Correct.
come over to the crosswalk.
Yeah, until we can extend the path to the north, which we hope to do in the real near future. But we don't have any right-of-way along Elm Swamp to the north, and we would have to either find people that are willing to donate or purchase right-of-way, which right now, that's just not in our budgets going into 2025, but that may change in the near future, and we'll be able to extend that path further.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Kevin. Okay, the next item is the 2025 meeting dates that was included in your packet. If you could look that over. My suggestion is to change the July date, the July meeting. It's July 2nd. And
I was looking at that too, yeah. I question if that would be hard for John, especially because that's a crazy week, in a good way.
7th or the 9th?
Yes, that would be the following Wednesday.
so, okay, so change that to the 9th.
Does that work?
Does that work for you guys, John?
Yeah.
And are there any other changes or suggestions?
It's the only one I know.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2025 meeting dates.
I move we approve the meeting dates as presented for 2025.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Shirley, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Next on the agenda is Derek Warren and V3 on master planning for Old Street Garage.
Good evening, Park Board. My name is Derek Warren. I work in the Lebanon Planning and Zoning Department. One of the projects I've been working on recently is the master planning for the street garage reuse. So I'm going to introduce the team that's been working on that for us, give you a brief history of kind of how we got to this point and where we're going after tonight. So, V3, the firm that we're working with, we were introduced to them through what we have available to us called a Brownfields grant through the EPA. So the EPA Brownfields grant, the city has been participating in for about 8 years now. We've had 3 separate rounds of that money come through to us. And what that means is it's environmental testing for sites, for commercial sites. Anytime a commercial structure these days is sold, part of the due diligence is to do a history of the use of the building to make sure there were no users that were contaminating the structures. If there were, they move on to some other testing and find out what exactly it is and what needs to be done to make everything safe. So in this third round of money that we've used from the EPA, they expanded the ability for us to use money for reuse plans within that grant money. So part of this reuse plan is being funded through the federal brownfields grant that we do have, and that contract is with V3. So the environmental side that I work very closely with introduced us to their planning side, and their environmental side is fantastic to work with, and as we've worked through this process, the planning side is also great. I'm thrilled with the results that we've gotten to so far. So Sarah Evans and Corinne Lucas are here tonight to present to you the data that's been received from the community engagement events and from the online survey that we've had posted. And, I've been involved with a bunch of different means and methods to get community feedback over the years here, and some work well, some don't. You try to repeat the ones that work well, and they fail the next time for some reason, So that's always the million-dollar question: how do you get the community engagement and feedback? I'm going to let them talk about it in their presentation, but I was really thrilled with the approach that we used for this engagement, and we got some really, really exciting feedback in return. So. The data is solid. With that data, they've plugged in the information to date to give us what is a opportunity and constraint site plan. And that identifies what the constraints are on the property, and it plugs in some of the community feedback onto the site in kind of like a bubble format, so to speak. So they're going to present that to you tonight. That's where we are now. And then as we work back through this, they will be coming back to the park board for a presentation within the first quarter of 25. Our timeline has kind of shifted a little bit because some of the decisions that we've made for the feedback time frame. So first quarter of 25, they'll be back to give you a conceptual master plan stage, basically. And then shortly after that, if not at the same meeting, maybe the next meeting, we'll have a final plan for you to adopt into the 2023 master plan that is currently adopted. And we'll also have some funding numbers, that what it looks like to develop the park along with that. So that's kind of where we're at, where we're going. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those before we turn it over to V3. But if you don't, I'll let them have the stage and they can do their thing.
A quick question. You said there's already been an idea of what to do with the park?
From the community feedback, yes.
And we're talking about the park on, what road's that on again?
Lafayette Avenue.
Lafayette Road, okay.
Lafayette Avenue, yep.
Where did we have the questionnaire? Where did we get the feedback from? How did we post it?
Yep, they'll explain that in their presentation, but we were at an LHS varsity football game set up, getting feedback as people were coming in. Mischief on Meridian was another event that we physically went to. So as I mentioned, the exciting part for me is the engagement that we received, and it was us going to those events and getting the feedback from the people at those events, which was, it reached into further corners than I've ever seen some of the feedback come back for.
Other questions?
Okay, I'll turn it over.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Evans. I'm the Landscape Architecture Group Leader at B3, and joining me this evening is Corinne Lucas, my colleague. I'm going to share with you all the data that we got through the various methods that Derek was describing we engaged with the community on, and then Corinne is going to walk us through our opportunities and constraints diagram. So I'm not exactly sure how to share my screen. Oh, here we go. Great. And as follow-up to this discussion, we're certainly happy to share this as a PDF for your records as well. So as Derek mentioned, we attended a few different community events. Back this fall, we attended the Lebanon High School football game on October 18th. We originally were going to attend the night that there was a tornado or the hurricane rains. So I was glad that we pushed that to October 18th. We had really great engagement at that game because it really allowed us to connect with youth in your community, which I think is really important as we're designing a park. They're the ones that are going to use the park, and they also are really insightful in terms of helping us design spaces. We also attended the Mischief on Meridian event on October 26th, and there was I know this is a huge event for your community, and we had a lot of folks come by the booth just to understand about the project, what was happening, to hear some of the plans or the opportunities that we were discussing. And we also provided a QR code that took folks to the online community survey. And then we also conducted a community-wide online survey that was live from September 23rd through November 8th. As Derek mentioned, and I myself, we were really excited to have 480 total respondents. I think that's really strong, engagement from your community. So we were really happy to have that many respondents. I'm going to not get into all of the detail here that is shown, and I'm realizing it's a little small for some of the big screen, but the online community survey, it covered not only what residents desired for this park space, it was covering a variety of questions just in terms of your overall park system. So it was a great opportunity to sort of say, where are we at as a community, and hear some of those general feedback from residents. So this first kind of slide dealt with a lot of those general questions of how often do you visit parks? Do you visit parks outside of Lebanon? How do you usually get to parks within Lebanon? Overall, the key takeaways to these types of questions were that users typically visit parks on a weekly basis, and that they get there by car. Walking, jogging, playing at playgrounds, and attending events are all popular activities. And we also had some write-in responses in this section that showed going to a splash pad, a water park, or a pool is a popular event or activity, as well as biking and skating. The next section, again, was kind of under that general category, what prevents you from visiting the parks more often. This is not a surprise. I think it's just lack of time. Folks have very busy schedules. How long do you typically visit a park, or how much time do you spend there? Typically, it's between an hour to 2 hours, and folks are typically visiting parks in the evening time, after school and work. A lot of times the write-in comments and the open responses are where we learn a lot of great information. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of these comments here because I think what it highlights for me and what I would like you all to take away is that you're doing a great job here with your parks in Lebanon. I like the trail around Memorial Park because it feels safe and you can get exercise. I love how beautiful and welcoming our parks are. We love the new accessible playground. So this is direct feedback that your community is giving you as a park system. So I think that's really positive. Some other questions: what improvements would you like to see in existing parks? Key takeaways from that is that folks would like to see improvements to existing facilities, specifically restrooms, seating, and shade. So while that can help you inform for improvements to your existing parks, but we wanted to take that into what we're thinking about for this new park space. Folks also said that they'd like to see updates to old equipment and features and improve safety. This next question was, what types of programs or classes would you be interested in attending at your park spaces? And a lot of the feedback that we hear is geared toward toddler, parent and me type classes during the evenings or weekends. And then camps. That was a big feedback as well. So the mommy and me classes and programs, homeschool options for homeschool families, and then skateboarding programs. Those were some of the key takeaways. Park users also value park maintenance. This next section was a lot about programming and then what types of features folks would like to see that would cater to older individuals in the community as well as children. So some of the key takeaways there is that park users value features for both youth and teens. You know, I know engaging teens, particularly in parks, is sometimes a challenge in any community. So that we're presented with that challenge, I think, with this project. And that park users are interested in smooth walking paths and shade structures. You know, I think that's something that universally around park users enjoy. They also are interested in interactive play zones and a splash pad for children. And some of the write-in responses showed an interest in nature playgrounds and natural elements, as well as age and ability-specific playgrounds. So thinking about, you know, creating a welcoming space for all of the users in your community. These next couple of questions are, what family-friendly amenities would you like to see in this new park, and what types of events would you like to see? Key takeaways here is that people would like restrooms and picnic areas. They're also interested in food festivals and music concerts. But as a caveat to that, you know, folks are concerned about noise levels. You know, they recognize that this is a small space, it's within a residential context, so they're very mindful of, you know, the events being appropriate for the site and context. This is a variety of questions that really start to dig into the types of features. So like, how important are shaded rest areas? How interested would you be in having a plot in a community garden within this new park? How important is the availability of restroom facilities? The key takeaways to many of these questions are that folks really want to have a restroom. You know, I think that's, especially when you're thinking about younger children, you know, a family coming to a park, you need a place to potty. But anyway, anybody really needs a facility like that. And then also, park users are valuing features for all age groups and shaded rest areas. So this is a common theme that we're starting to see. But where folks are clear in their feedback is that they're not really interested in a community garden for this space. This, again, is just ranking some of the features that we wanted to test. Skate park, splash pad, outdoor games. So we tested all of these elements with community and asked them to help us in prioritizing them because, again, we're working within a smaller context. We have to help prioritize those program elements. Key takeaways on this are that walking path and a splash pad are the top desired park features. Next on those priorities are a skate park, an event space, outdoor games, and gathering space. Elements that are not desired at this park include a dog park, outdoor fitness, sports facilities, so like sports fields and courts, and then community garden. Those were typically unpopular with the survey group. This question asked about how interested folks are in having educational signage and programs at the new park, and how important is it that we host community events and activities. And it was lukewarm. You know, I'd say it's sort of 50-50 on whether folks are interested in the educational signage and programs as well as events and activities. key takeaways on these next few questions, this was really just gauging some interest in like being part of future community meetings or focus groups, volunteering, that kind of stuff. So I think that's also valuable information for you as a park board. And, you know, basically what we learned from this is that park users prefer to receive updates and information through social media or email. I mean, it sounds like from the earlier updates that the Facebook page is very active, and that's a great way for you to continue to share information. Again, this was like a final thoughts, open-ended question, and some of the comments that we gleaned from this are highlighted here. So splash pad or another interactive water feature is one of those good desired features. Outdoor classroom, relaxing space, a skate or biking loop area so that parents have a place to teach their children about roller skating or biking. Natural type of elements like areas for bees, butterflies, birds, and a faux creek water feature were some of the elements that stood out to us on this. And then we also collected some optional demographic information. The key takeaways from this is that most of the survey, the online survey respondents were parents within the ages of 25 to 44. And the survey was taken mostly by Lebanon residents that live between 0 to 2 miles from the proposed park site. So again, I think as we're thinking about, a neighborhood or a community park level of service, these folks are going to be coming to this, they'll be served by this new park. And again, I just want to highlight that while like the average age or the largest respondent pool was 25 to 44, that's why I think going to the Mischief on Meridian and the high school football game is really great supplemental information to, again, engage with the youth of your community who are going to be most impacted by this park. Any questions for me on the data that supported our opportunities and constraints?
On the ranking page, this is kind of hard to absorb all this.
Sure, it's a lot.
On the ranking page, I noticed that skate park, was that it? No. The features.
Page 7.
Yeah, the
This
skate
one
park.
here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The skate park is number 10, and it has 145 votes. Is that an error?
No, yeah, can you clarify, Karen?
Yeah, so we looked at that two different ways. We looked at for the first chart on the left, that was how many votes had the number 1 ranking, and then the second chart is what was the highest amount of votes, like what was the ranking for the highest amount of votes. So while skate park had the third most number 1 rankings, it also had the most number 10 rankings. So it was kind of we thought it was interesting to see how the differences in that.
Yeah, we were asking folks really to prioritize. We were only giving them like 3 options initially, to, again, help in the prioritization. So we do see it up there, ranking high as a desired element. And then we also see it receiving in terms of total votes that it gets, a lot of total votes at 145.
This survey, and again, to follow up on the question I asked earlier, I can throw a rock to that place from my house. I didn't see any survey. I don't do social media, and unfortunately on those 2 events, couldn't make it. So where else would we have seen for a park that's quite literally in my backyard? How else could I have been reached out to have a vote, a say, an option, a look? And then with these questions, did we ask the survey with the idea that you already have a plan in mind? and you're trying to figure out what's in it? Or is this a blank survey, open question, and can we have the survey a copy of what you gave out to them? So I could look it over, we could look it over. Because these questions seem designed towards a desired interest, just based on looking at a lot of surveys previous to this. So I'm just curious of the questionnaire, and just with the people around me, I know the talk from my neighbors and stuff, they didn't see anything either. A lot of them, like me, were either working or at another event during, and I'm sorry, I don't go to football games. So I'm just curious where else we could have seen those.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear some of your things. You were leaned back a little bit there. I didn't pick it up on the microphone. Were you saying, what was the kind of the second part of your question?
Just where else could we have seen this survey? Because again, I don't go to the football games, not my sport.
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to hear that comment no matter what attempts we make, and figuring out where to focus that energy, where to put the efforts to get the most feedback was certainly talked about. And the online surveys certainly these days create the most feedback. It was posted on Facebook, all over the place with Joe. I understand what you're saying about not having social media. I miss out on a lot of stuff too because I don't have social media. I get it. But, on the other hand, if you go to the effort of taking the time to schedule meetings, places, offering food, buying food, doing whatever you can to get people to show up, more times than not, you get crickets in the room. And I think one of the slides in here was pretty telling about, would you like to take further surveys or be involved in any other meetings for the planning of this? And the answer was overwhelmingly no. So, we're lucky to get what we get. In a lot of these cases, you're not going to get a large percentage of feedback no matter what you do. But we did our best effort to put that out there on the media outlets that we do have available to us. But again, I know that's not going to reach everybody, and that's just that's with any approach that you take.
And then certainly we can share the survey that was sent out, and as well as a copy of the feedback that we received. Happy to do that.
Yeah, I would like to have it sometime because that was pretty fast.
Sure.
And, I'm not saying, I would just like an opportunity to look through it.
Yeah, to really absorb everything, yeah. So the way that our process typically works is we will do an inventory of a site, which is really recording the existing conditions. We look at circulation, we look at topography, utilities of a site, anything that exists on the site. And we really, in a lot of ways, have a blank canvas here because we're creating a new park. But also being mindful of the context. So that's part of the constraints as well as being respectful of the neighbors. What we do then is we engage community to get an idea of the desires and the wants and the needs for a new park. So that's that process that we just went through. And from that, we create what we call a program, or essentially a menu of items that will be the elements of your new park. And then we map that on the site against the inventory information so that we can create this opportunities and constraints graphic. This really gives us a nice base map for the initial concept then. So Corinne's going to walk us through this graphic. Again, it's very bubble diagrammatic in the way that we're presenting it, but it's using design information and realistic sizing for these features so that we're making sure we're not putting in too many elements. And then again, as we create that conceptual sketch plan, it'll be in a sketch form so that we can review it with our client team and stakeholders to vet that. It gives us the opportunity to sort of push and pull on things so that things are not set in stone. And then we keep working towards a finer detail, laying it out in the computers to start giving us more accurate numbers on square footage. We will then use that plan to create an illustrative rendering. So that's a tool then that you can use in communicating with the community and potentially requesting funding. And then also, we will create a conceptual level cost estimate, which then gives you a good idea of what the likely cost would be to implement the park. And then we can work again, too, with our client team, with you all, to identify any phasing as you would anticipate potential funding for that. So that gives you a good idea of like where we're going to go. But we want to review our opportunities and constraints graphic with you so that we can get your input and make sure we're not missing anything before we get into the next step.
Are you going to be including some of the park staff with some of this? Since
Yes.
they're the ones, and also, have you been through our current master plan? Just
Yeah.
saying, because I don't want to overlap, or maybe something would come up that would be good there.
Yeah, yeah, so our client team includes Derek and John from the Parks team. We've got a variety of folks that I'm probably forgetting their names. Derek, maybe I'll ask you for help there. But we've got a variety of folks, wearing their different hats that are part of our client team to advise us in the process. And then in terms of your Parks Master Plan, I do think that that's something that will be, as we're developing this, reviewing to make sure that we're not duplicating any elements, to your point there.
I'm not saying you wouldn't want to duplicate some, but we have the master plan. I think it would be good for you to review. But
Yeah.
I would like to see the park staff involved, because we all stand back and come up with great ideas, but they may have better ideas or say, that won't work and here's why.
Yeah.
So I'd really like them included in
Most
this
definitely.
process,
Yeah.
please.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
We are. Okay. I don't have my mouse, so you'll have.
Hello, I'm Corinne, as Derek and Sarah mentioned. So this is the opportunity and constraints diagram. And it would be split up into 3 different zones. The first zone along the edge closest to Lafayette Avenue would be the community zone. This would include a large group shelter that could be used for rentable events like birthday parties, different things like that, or it could be used for different community-led events. Next to it would be a classroom/performance space. We're envisioning this like a type of amphitheater type round classroom that could be used for smaller events. Since this site is so small, I don't think it would be for any larger events. I see this as maybe 30 to 40 people max. I think the large group shelter could fit about the same amount of people. Yeah. And also in this zone would be a flex lawn. This could be an extension space for any events or programs, but it could also be used for picnicking or lounging when there are not events. And lastly, this space would have restrooms. So we situated this closest to the parking for maintenance access and easier access to utilities. And the next zone is the kids zone. So this is a zone that would be designed with children ages 2 to 12 in mind. So there would be a nature playground, a toddler play zone, which would be more like 2 to 5-year-olds, like smaller kids, while the nature playground would be 6 to 12. And there would also be a splash pad. We situated the splash pad and the toddler play zone closer to the restrooms for easy access for parents and little ones. And surrounding the nature playground, making its way down towards the event space, would be a creek play zone. We got a lot of comments about really liking natural spaces, and we wanted to incorporate some sort of faux creek that could serve as stormwater management, but also be a place for children to play and climb on the rocks. We have an example image farther up on the graphic. And this could also work as a bit of a barrier around the playground that could keep kids from running too far. And this area would also have a seating area kind of in the middle so that parents could sit and look at all of the 3 different play areas and keep an eye on their kids. And then the third zone would be the teen zone. We got a lot of comments about how there's not a lot for older kids, and there were some instances of older kids using things that were made for younger kids, and they were kind of being bullies. So we wanted to include something specifically for kids ages 13 to 17, some more physically challenging activities to keep them engaged and having fun. So a skate park would be a big part of that. We are also considering a skate park and a bouldering wall. What did I say? Oh, obstacle course. And this would also have a seating area in this zone for teens to hang out and socialize. And we understand that having the teen zone in the back of the park could create some security issues, but we are planning on making sure the sight lines from the parking lot reach all the way back into that area, so that there is visibility into the back of the park. And then these 3 zones would be surrounded by a multi-use trail loop. With the size of the space, we estimate it could be about 1/4 mile. So it could have, like if you do 4 loops, you can do a mile. So it could be used for riding bikes, roller skating, walking, jogging, and it could have it could have distance markers along the way. And there would also be different pockets of seating throughout the park that wouldn't be in a specific zone. So these could be quieter little pockets of seating. And there would also be a vegetation buffer. Since we got comments about concerns of noises from the park, and also some concerns of the park being next to the storage units. So I think this buffer could block some of the views of the storage units, but it could also dampen some of the noise for the residential areas on the other sides.
The last thing I just wanted to point out too, is that we are planning, we know folks visit parks by car, and so we're planning for about 15 to 20 parking spaces down here, right along Lafayette Avenue, as well as anticipating the future multi-use trail. As Corinne mentioned, we've got an internal trail that loops around the park that would anticipate that future trail connectivity as well, so. That we welcome your feedback and thoughts, and I think one of the biggest questions that we have is there anything missing in your minds in terms of the opportunities and constraints here?
I do have a question. Can you tell me approximately what the space availability is that's part of this property?
Like the total acreage?
Yeah.
Do you remember what that is?
I don't.
I think 3.5 acres.
That's a lot in 3.5 acres. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, we use these bubbles sized off of real life elements in terms of to make sure that we're spatially configuring the site appropriately.
So is this it? I mean, this is what the plan is to put in that area?
This is the first step in that. This is really, again, this is us testing some of those ideas on the site and starting to think about spatial relationships to each other. Like Corinne was mentioning, we based on the feedback, we heard restrooms are priority, a splash pad's a priority. You have to have a splash pad within 300 feet of a restroom. That's a code issue. So that, and also thinking about the cost considered to serving, from a utility standpoint. You have all your utilities along the Lafayette Avenue. So that's informing why we're putting things where we're putting them. And also thinking about the user experience and what makes sense to place next to each other. So this is really just the first start, but it starts to guide us toward the development of the conceptual design.
It just seems like a lot for that area.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of ground maintenance and being able to have paths to get through. And I'm assuming that you would have to put substantial landscaping on either side of it am I right, Kevin? On either side, they would have to do substantial landscaping?
I think that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my bad.
I think I could probably speak to this as well, but I think you're right. That was some of the constraints that went into these first steps of the process, is to look at the surrounding uses, the residential uses, and say we want to buffer those existing residential uses from these areas, especially some of the more active areas. So yeah, there would be substantial landscaping included.
I know anything that comes in, we do require buffering and substantial landscaping, and I don't know, I'm trying to get a feel. This is the first we've seen this. It just seems like a lot for that area, and a trail and landscaping, and be able to maintain the green space.
Yeah, and you're right, there are landscape buffering standards from the planning standpoint that I also addressed through this. And keep in mind, this is not even a concept plan. This is just presenting the feedback that they've gathered.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't, okay.
It seems like a lot for not very many parking spots.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a family gathering and have 15 cars there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think, that's really valuable feedback for us is if there is the feeling of maybe overdeveloping, that's kind of what I'm hearing in terms of some of these comments here. So that's valuable feedback for us.
And that's because I live out that way, that's a congested area right there too. Because you're turning onto Sam Ralston Road and there's a stop there and then there's people coming from Additions the other way. So the traffic, I would think would be a concern.
If you could get all this information to us, and I mean, we could take the time to look at it, and then, so what's the next step?
Yeah, and I would encourage you, like, the more direct feedback you can give us, the more helpful that is for us, because again, like, the planning process, it's a very iterative process. It's not a one and done, so it's like, we use these plans, we present them, we get feedback. The next time we come to you, you want to see how we've incorporated that feedback. So again, like, the more direct you can be, that's really helpful. The next step is, I had my schedule somewhere. So send us your feedback. We'll, again, work with the client team. We'll incorporate that feedback. We will, it may be valuable then to address this opportunities and constraints map, make sure that we're hearing you, and then again, use this diagram to move forward so we can refine this. And then we'll start with what we call a sketch master plan. So again, it's literally putting pencil to trash paper. It's very, it's drawn to scale and in real, with some reality there, but by doing it in pencil, it's showing that it's not a finalized plan. It gives us the ability to sort of push and pull on things and modify things. So after we get through that sketch master plan and we share that with the client and stakeholders, then we'll start working on a conceptual master plan. So where we take that pencil line work and we start putting it in the computer, that gives us, again, the ability to do takeoffs, to do some of the high-level costing then from that, and then really to start providing a base map then that we'll use to create a conceptual rendering, or the illustrative rendering, excuse me. So looking at the sketch master plan, we're looking to have that complete by the end of January. And then we'd move into conceptual master plan in February, early February. And then again, I think that's a good opportunity for us to come back to you to present that mid-February. Again, get your input and feedback. Then we do the illustrative rendering and our cost opinion. So that's like end of February, early March. And then we do our public presentation of the final master plan. That's where we're going to talk about, these are the elements that are planned for the space, these are the costs associated with them, and if we need to talk through any of the phasing, for costs so that you can plan that out as a park board. That will be our final presentation we've identified that for March 17th. Is that one of the park board meetings that you approved earlier for 2025?
March 5th.
March 5th,
And then
okay.
April 2nd.
Okay, so we'll want to update this to match, your new dates as well, but that's our plan.
So if they get everything to us, I'd encourage everybody to give their feedback so that redo some stuff on that.
I do have a request, and just because I haven't seen it before, could we have, with all your planning updating, just a constant feedback of what both the cost of maintenance and the time needed for all the elements you put for our park staff? A lot of times we hear a lot of projects come up here that I just don't hear anything about how much this is going to put the burden on the park staff, how much money it's going to require to put this up, meaning that cost, that's an overtime cost that doesn't really get represented in any of the talks of money that I've heard so far with any of our projects. So if we could have that included, the overtime cost of maintenance, upkeep, time spent in taking care of the property, as well as the cost of just implementing it into that space.
Sure, you're an operations cost. Yeah, I would look to Kevin and John to help us with that, because they're going to know, is this, how many people it would take to maintain? Is this a full-time employee, a seasonal employee? What your pay rate is? Those types of elements. I would ask for their help in building that.
I was going to say something too about the maintenance. I'm a part of this committee, and that was one of the things that we talked about, is wanting things to not require as much maintenance. And we talked about how we wanted a lot of natural elements, so they wouldn't require a lot of extra maintenance. With the rocks and the creek, things like that would take away from as much mowing and landscaping and things like that. So that's
Are
just
you on the
something
client team?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah,
I
so
guess. Is that
so
what
there's a
team
very.
I'm on? One of those teams, I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry for interrupting. Yeah, there's, in our initial diagram, there's a very small area for mowed turf, whereas the rest of the park is elements, or that vegetation buffer. So yeah, reducing your mowing cost was something that we were thinking of.
Do we already have an existing budget for this? We don't. So we're building something and then going to find the money, instead of having a budget to work with to,
I mean, that's
at
all.
home, we have to figure out what our budget is first,
And no different than your 2023 master plan that you've adopted. You don't have a budget for that either. So it's all opportunity driven, what grants are available, what money the city has available. But without these plans, you don't have a target to aim for. So no, there is no budget for this, but it is something that we need to do in order to as a community, have the ability to show that we have planned for this when those opportunities come up. This is certainly part of the idea for this particular site is sort of like, I won't call it a pocket park, but it's a neighborhood park, So hopefully a lot of people, just in the general area, you start talking about Clear Vista, the neighborhoods around there, the Hoosier Estates, the Marley area, all that. You're within a 5-minute walk, So you don't want to fill a site with some of the comments about the parking. You don't want to fill the site with too much parking, and take away from the amenity stuff. So it is a little bit of a unique setting. So it's not going to be a typical, massive green space and other things that you associate with Memorial Park and Admiral Longley Park. So this is somewhat unique for the system here.
Do we have an expected, just real quick, do we have a cap, an idea, an expected? I know we don't have a budget, I don't know, but are we, at least when I go grocery shopping, like you said, I know what I do have or might have. So do we have an idea of what our top end is going to be, or how much we're at least looking to budget for this?
Brett, everything's expensive for sure. I'll call it generic playground equipment, your 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000, So we don't have a general idea quite yet. I don't know that we want to, put constraints on the idea with a budget. I think we want to, see what fits, see what the community wants, put it out there, shoot for the stars. And with all of these plans, the planning documents that the city uses for thoroughfares, for everything that the city does, they're not set in stone. They move, they breathe, and they get adjusted for certain things. They get phased, as mentioned. So maybe you start with something, the skate park in the back, and one of the creek feature, and you build upon that. Nobody's expecting this to be a one-check deal as you develop the park. So phase 1 is this. Phase 2 is demoing the buildings. Phase 3 is as money starts to become available and they start to creep up on the priority list, you start to tackle some of those. But at the end of this, we will have a general idea of cost for sure.
I would just add to that, by having that overall cost initially, again, that's a discussion opportunity so that you can say, this is realistically what we would anticipate, for a first phase. And that allows us to then think through logically what makes sense to implement to provide some of the necessary building blocks that you can build upon. And just to echo Derek's comments, I can't emphasize enough the importance of the planning process. In my years of experience, I have seen how a park that was $100 million, it was no funding available at the start of the project. And we went through the planning process. It was one of those opportunities too that was like really catalytic for a community. And by putting together a very thoughtful, engaging plan that thought through the phasing of it, the community then was able to have a funder come to them and say, we have this money, we need something to do with it. And they said, we have a plan. And it was just a great opportunity for them because they had that plan. So I do applaud you for going through this planning process now to set you up well in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Okay, next on the agenda is Damon Crease.
Hello, I'm back again. Thankfully, after talking with John, I think we're just seeking for, again, approval for our barn. We went over some ideas with him, went over the cost, which will be fully funded by LISA. We're not asking for any money in that. We're just asking for basically the ability to get a new barn put out there, follow all the city rules and regulations on how to secure that and get that all done. I believe we have hopefully a vendor who has basically agreed to help do those things to help, secure the posts, get it all set into the concrete. It will still be something that can be, cut away and moved if that's ever needed. It'll be permanent by the regards of the city, but not, in any way a fully permanent building. It will just be a bigger barn than what we have to help our projects. We're growing a lot. We just got a grant for some new goals, and as we realized when we were going to put everything away this fall that we had no more space to put anything away. So I hit John back up again to beg and plead for the ability to have a barn, and he's agreed to at least tentatively our ideas for that. So I just need to get your approval on that. It'll be a black and gold 14 by 36 steel building. It'll have a 6-foot or potentially larger, I think they go up to 8-foot roll-up door that'll be secured, and a 3-foot entry door that'll also be secured. That'll help to protect our items that are in there. And we have a lot of expensive equipment that's not really useful to anybody but us, but we need to make sure those things are protected and secured for our use. For the growing program and the kids. So that's the first part, I guess, of that. I don't know if there needs to be a vote or if you want me to continue on.
Will your security include a camera?
We do not have power out there. I would love to have a camera out there for sure. I think that we have looked into like trail cams, things like that. But I mean, that's only really useful after the fact. So I didn't know if that was, that'd be something we'd love to have, obviously, but I don't think that's anything directly in our immediate plans. We do have, if it would help in any way, we have solar panel lights that we would be hoping to attach to the barn, just to, in case anybody gets near the front of it in the middle of the night, lights would go off and at least alert anybody around there there'd be somebody in that space. So yeah, those would all be items to bring to you guys or to John.
That's worry about you being vulnerable,
Yeah. So I mean, and what we have now, we're right by the shelter that's out there. So it's not like somebody couldn't. We have had we had a couple of things.
Do you have conceptuals or anything?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I've got the. If it'll. No, you're good. I don't know if this will show from my phone. Entry door there, the roll-up door, and then on the back side, I believe we've got a small window, just that way there's additional options for, getting things in and out or whatever be it. I think it's like a 2-foot by 3-foot window on the plans. Yeah, it doesn't really show up that well, but it's a really nice gold color with black trim and white doors and all that. So, yeah.
Have you had problems with theft, you say, in the past? You
So,
started
so
saying-
not thefts, thankfully, but we have some kids that come out, and that's also why I love the idea of a skate park, somewhere else for them to go, and not that they destroy. I've actually read a lot of things that skate parks help to reduce a lot of that. That gives them, kids a place to go for that outlet. So I'm really hoping that's a thing that does happen. But we had some PVC pipe that we used for, a structure that we came out and, a couple pieces were broken in half. And we had some paint that was left out that was supposed to be getting picked up. And before it got picked up, some kids came and took the bunghole out of that and dumped the paint all over the concrete. So that's something for us to clean up in the spring. Unfortunately, it's right by the barn, so we really can't do anything until we get that barn out of the way. It's kind of up in that space. But, we hope to be able to scrub that all clean and get that all back nice like it should be. Once it warms up a little bit, we'll get all that scraped up. But, yeah, so.
Not worried about a glass window?
No. It's safety. It's not a glass window. It's a safety, like plexi, whatever. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm a little confused. This, you're bringing in to replace the building
Correct.
that's there?
We currently have
okay.
what was it, 12 by 20? Yeah, a 12 by 20 wood building that unfortunately it's gotten waterlogged. It's no longer really up to, structural sound quality that we need, and it's nowhere near big enough for all the things that we have out there that we need to secure.
And what is the size on this one?
14 by 36, and Billy and John and I went out there, we measured, where we want to put it, and, they approved of the location. We're going to put it on the back side of the concrete pad, closer to where the new water spigot is, kind of secure that area there, and allow the shelter area to have more open space in front of that.
I know there was at one point you wanted to build a barn, but you were building it so you could take it with you, and we denied that.
Well, so this is a pre-built barn. I mean, we're not building anything. This is pre-built. The quote that I have is from Roland Mini Barn that they deliver to the area, and it's a really good quality barn. It's got lots of good reviews on them. And yeah, that would be the only thing. I mean, we plan on we've adjusted our programming a little bit, so we plan on staying at Reese Park for a number of years. But like I said, this would be hurricane strapped in to new posts set into the concrete that we would hope to at some point, if we ever did leave, we would be hoping to take that along with us, or, whatever we need to work out in regards to that. But, again, it's a metal construction barn. I don't think it's what the parks would want out there long-term anyway, if we were to leave. But, obviously I'm open to whatever solution is needed there, so.
What about the floodplain? Have you checked into that building there? Because that's a floodplain.
So the floodplain doesn't start until. Yeah, it's out of the floodplain. Yeah,
It's out of the floodplain?
It'd be on the existing concrete. The floodplain, I think, starts about 20 feet off of that, because there's a big berm there, and it starts about 20 feet off of that at a diagonal going to the far corner, where the new, whatever that pump house is. I think that section and over towards is where the floodplain is, but this would not be in the floodplain, no.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, we met out there, Damon's real good. We met out there and we discussed it and looked at where it could go, but I don't know if the requirements are for a footer system or anything like that. I was just notified that it might need a footer system be required. If so I think they need a variance also. I spoke with Ben Bonnetrager, planning. I think what Ben would need would be a favorable recommendation, not saying that the plan whatever, if they would approve it or not, the variance. There again, I think they would have to do that. So what Damon is requesting is a okay or a with whatever you would require. And if you do that, then he can go before the zoning board to see if it is okay to go forward with the project. He had asked for a container prior to this, and containers are not. This is a metal building, however. So there again, I don't know what the codes are or what planning is going to say about it, but I think they would want a favorable vote from you prior to anything. So you shot the other, or you denied the request, the other request. If you deny, then it's a moot point. But if you go forward, then it goes before zoning. He has to get that approval prior. and get with Parks Department, which he has already done, but to make sure that all the requirements are met from the planning, zoning boards.
I think that was part of my misstep last time, was that I'd gone straight to Ben, because I just assumed that it was just a city matter, and my apologies on that one. But so he's already talked to me about all the requirements we would need, and that's what I'm talking about, the footers. They would have to come in and cut the concrete, pour new footers, and have the hurricane straps put into that. As far as I know, I think it was for every 10 foot, it was so many of those footers. But again, that's something that we would be looking to do. We'd follow all the city codes and whatever is required from them to make that happen, so.
I don't remember if there's any, Kevin, do you recall, is there anything about a temporary building? I mean, can they do that and then take it with them? Is there anything? I'm just looking, I'm not.
So yeah, so that's what Ben Bontrager initially told us, was that takes it from a temporary to a permanent structure with and because of the barn size, we couldn't just drop it anyways. It has to be secured. So we wouldn't be able to do it as a temporary. It would, because of the footers, it would be deemed, I think anything over that I think the size that we have is the smallest you can go as a temporary.
So to take it with you, you have to take it apart?
We would just cut the hurricane straps.
It comes with footers, so it's considered a building. You could put this in your backyard. But when it gets secured to the ground, it goes into these footers. So the footers get placed, gets set down, and the building itself gets secured into the footers. Okay. So it's like any other building that you would basically bring out, and then there's work done to secure it to the ground to make sure it, and those are the policies and codes that make it a permanent building. Permanent simply means that the wind isn't going to blow it away.
The difference of the concrete, if we were to take that and leave, would just be the new footer areas, which, I mean, I don't know if you guys have been out there, but some of that concrete's pretty cracked. I mean, it would need some work to be done regardless of us putting a barn out there if it was going to be used for anything. But yeah, it would just be the new footer posts would be, and they'd be flush with the existing concrete, so there wouldn't be any, additional anything, trip hazards, anything like that. It would be left as level as it is currently.
This is a little different than what you were looking at before. It was
slightly, yes.
like not going to be a permanent.
Yeah, that we were finding our feet last time, and yeah, I didn't understand all the nuances to it. So yes, this should be, within all the codes of the city. I just need your guys' approval to take it before them, so.
Question for you. Who would provide the insurance for the building at that point?
We're insured through Indiana Soccer. Anything that we have with our equipment in or on or around is insured through Indiana Soccer.
If hail damaged or anything like that,
correct.
You guys are taken care of?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Gotcha. As far as I understand our insurance policy, yes, that is how that would work. So yeah, they cover us for, if somebody were to come out and steal our stuff, they cover us through that stuff as well. So I mean, that's we've got Indiana Soccer backing us as we're an affiliated club. So.
And the building too?
Correct.
Building also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
That's an investment. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to make sure what you already have, work with John and Billy and them on that, and with Ben, but I'm looking to the board for a motion.
I'll move that we approve as requested pending the process that is required through the zoning board to make sure that everything is met to their satisfaction.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second this one.
I got several seconds.
I did.
We heard a second over here,
I
too.
know, that's a first.
I better put him in the
It's
minute.
a first, second.
First, second, yeah. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carried.
And then I had one other thing, and this is in regards to our wonderful new fence that I thank you and I thank all of these people for making happen. It's already wonderful. We went out this last Sunday as adults and played, and it only took, like 3 shots for somebody to hit it over the fence, but we're adults, so the kids will have a much better time with that being useful to them and keeping them safe. To that end, we were looking at that as a potential for sponsorships. we've got some banners. I stuck one banner up there just for our thing up, and I'll be happy to take that down if you guys don't approve this. But we would be looking to do kind of similar to like what baseball does. This would either be just during season or year round, whatever you guys approve on. But we'd be looking to get some nice, I think the posts are 10 foot apart, right? Yeah, I think we're looking to do either like 5x3 banners so we could fit 2 in, or, depending on the amount of sponsors we have, maybe just the one so it doesn't look as cluttered. We're looking to get some nice banners made up, from somebody here in town, and use that as an additional revenue for sponsorships to, again, help to reduce the cost to our players. I think we've already got one of the most or on the more affordable side of programs for the youth. We want to continue to offer that and to reduce their costs as much as we can, and that would be a big step to allowing that to happen. So I was just going to see if there would be any option for allowing us to secure sponsor banners to that, either just on the park side of it so that it's not visible when people drive through, or also on both sides, or on just the front, depending on whatever is allowed or approved on for that.
I don't know what the codes are for banners. I know there's something, but John, what do we do with the youth football? What's allowed down there?
What I recall, and there again, I'm not up on the ordinance, but there's a 30-day, I think, that you can have it up. I know it back when Charlie Campbell was the planner, that there was a code out there that I think it allowed only a certain time period, and then just like the little things they stick in the ground, all the signage there, they can't go in easements, they can't go in park grounds or government property. There's a whole ordinance. As far as that, I understand they need to raise money. My only questions after we discussed it were the kids. That's all for safety, so you want to be able to have visibility for the kids to go in and out. I think that coverage, that's my concern. Again, a safety thing, there again, it's your decision. But there would have to be a time frame of how long those banners went out there today without any knowledge that the signage was up. Kind of irritated me a little bit that the signage was on the fence, just saying, without asking. And I've had youth football do similar things, had them take the fence or the signage down immediately. They need approval for those things, and that's why Damon is here today asking for approval. I have no problem with whatever your decision. I'll follow through with that decision. But that's my only concern on the signage, is that's for safety. You want kids, that's the whole reason we put the fence in, is for the safety of the children and visibility. So that was my only concern as far as safety. And there again, we have to follow the ordinance. And maybe Derek, are you familiar with the ordinance? I haven't been with code enforcement for a long time, so there you go.
Yeah, I'm familiar enough to tell you there are certainly exceptions. I'm not of the ability to necessarily tell you whether or not those exceptions would apply here or not. That would be a decision Ben would have to make. But there's obviously sponsorship banners, as mentioned, at the Little League fields and a couple other places. So there are ways to accomplish that, and Ben can work through those options.
The Little League ones don't come down, do they?
They come down every so often, probably. I don't know.
I mean, they change periodically, but it isn't like they have a 3-month, stint or something.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is there another place they can be hung besides on that fence?
Part of some of the banner rules developed over time because people would put banners up on like just fence posts, just like temporary fence posts, and a windstorm would come through and you have 3 or 4 corners, 2 or 3 corners flapping in the wind. Nobody'd ever come out and fix them. You'd have businesses that would open and use a banner hanging above the entry instead of an actual signage, and that's not what you want to portray, in terms of signage. So having them secured to a permanent structure, so to speak, is part of the importance of the banner conversation, so that they don't end up, bending the temporary fence posts in and becoming an eyesore for the community. Yep.
So real quick, I want to apologize, but it was 50 degrees on Sunday, and I wanted to get that banner up while I thought about it. But I knew I was coming here to request this. So again, if it's not approved, I will happily go out there and cut that down. So one other thing, as Brett and I are, when we run the program, we are out there literally every single day. John's can attest, he's driven by, we're out there even on days when we don't have the kids out there playing on our own. So if there is any issue with the banners, during season, I would definitely see those. I would get those addressed. I would, fix any broken, if the zip tie snaps off or whatever, I could get that fixed within the next day. So, if that's one of the things where maybe it's only a during season caveat, that's obviously fine with me. It just would, it just kind of limits, not limits, it helps to guide what we can ask for in terms of sponsorship dollars, whether it's up year round or, from spring to fall or just during the spring season, just during the fall season, during summer camp, things like that, which I have no issue with. I just need to have guidance on what you guys want me to do there, if anything.
I just say that I have no problem with sponsorships and advertisement. I think that's great community, networking and all that. But I do understand John's concern about the visibility, and the fence is there because of safety of athletes and trying to help keep that under control. And I think that's a really good point. So that's my only reservation about that.
I guess my thing was back to, I think the amount of panels we have, I think there's about 50 10-foot panels across there. I really don't expect to have more than 50 sponsors to begin with, so I could literally do one 5x3, and that would allow for basically 5 feet on either side in between the banners for visibility and space. I can also make sure that those stay away from the actual entrances. I could leave a whole 10-foot section away from the actual entrances, clear of a banner. Just put it on the innermost sections if that, because the visibility is only going to matter at the actual entrances and exits. Everything else, it's a fence. They shouldn't be jumping the fence or doing anything like that anyways, and it goes right into a parking lot. So I can understand the idea of keeping that visibility clean, but if we limit the amount of banners or even the size of them, I think that would help to address those issues.
Don, does that make you feel better about that?
Yeah, it kind of does. And also what we had out at the baseball at Memorial Park when they put up their banners out there, or not the banners, the fence, it really bent the fence. They have banners now that air can go through them a lot better, and I would request that. You can also, the visibility is a little better, so if there's a couple requirements like that and what he's willing to do, I think it's great. But I don't want them up all season. Season starts, season's done, they're gone. And I don't run the Little League, I do run youth football, they aren't allowed to do that. And they do kind of do the signage that Derek was talking about where they put up posts, because I didn't like those. Once they get tattered and they weren't taken care of, I don't like that look, and I think they need upkeep. We keep our parks in pretty good shape, so I want to keep that standard. That's
If they weren't up all year.
exactly.
And with our nice new barn, I have plenty of storage
And it is
space.
Reese Park, and my, no complaints. And Derek and I understand fundraising, and that's huge, and they got a great program, and they're doing great things out there, growing the program. So the funding source, it's a great idea, but just certain restraints, and make sure it's wind and you can see through. Visibility, safety is all we care about, as you could see through all the earlier. But
Are you talking about like the windscreen type banners?
Yes, pretty much, where you can see through. They have them, and they even signs in town that you're going to get. So I think those requirements, as long as you put those in there, I think that's great.
So if you work alongside John, and probably the sign up there now, we probably want to take down.
But it's too big anyways. That's just what we had, was one 18-footer, so I just stuck it up there to.
Appreciate that, but it looks so nice out there with the fence and the parking.
Very much agreed.
So if you want to work with John, and then maybe we need to find out the codes also. You're going to be talking to Ben, so, or maybe Derek can find those for you, so.
Yeah, when I take this to Ben, I'll see if he has any information on that and check with Derek as well.
I recommend approval of the signage as requested, pending the working with basically the Parks Department and the city to make sure that safety and visibility and the timelines of having up and down are followed. Yeah.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Okay, thank you. Okay, next this evening is the director's report.
Last but not least, here we go, all right?
Go.
Yeah, nice long meeting this evening. Thank you for having me. Here we go. The past month, we removed a large playground at Abner Longley Park and prepared for the new one to be installed. It was put in and the equipment was installed by Thanksgiving, along with 90 yards of playground certified safety playground mulch. The playground at Memorial Park also received an upgrade during the week of Thanksgiving. That Taylor O'Brien got his project complete for his Eagle Scout project. There again, it's right next to the all-inclusive area. It's a musical aspect, and it's pretty cool. I've already seen kids playing on it. We had some nice weather last weekend, along with being down at Abner and playing on that. So, been well received, both of those. And there again, Abner Longley financially was helped out from the Kiwanis Club. We would appreciate that. And Memorial Park, obviously, Taylor O'Brien raised monies for that. And boy, they had some nasty weather. They had rain. They were out there. It was horrible conditions, but both of them did. But they all got installed and inspected, and it's good to go and safe. We've also completed installation of the 18-hole disc golf course at Abner. Seen quite a few people out there enjoying it. Hopefully, Jonathan Shirley has been out there taking care and playing it. There again, seen a lot of guys out there, and it's a nice addition to the park system. Along with these projects, we assembled the 25-foot Christmas tree that is now lit downtown. All the decorations downtown, we want to help the utilities for helping us hang those. They've been well received. And there again, we completed all the decorations at Memorial Park. That takes about 3 weeks of putting it up. People are complaining, why are you putting it up? Well, you know, we aren't going to slap it up in one day, and we like to turn them on Thanksgiving. And some of them, when they're up in the air, we go ahead and plug them in early. So there again, we didn't like the Christmas tree or anything before Thanksgiving and all the park decorations. But yeah, it's always nice, and we get in the spirit that way.
They look great.
There, thank you. The crew did a great job, always do. All the buildings have been winterized. We put heaters, in some of them we had to hook up heaters, which we've done in the past years for the vital buildings where we just can't take any chances of any freezes. We've had 2 weather fronts, and that was before this afternoon. Now there's 3 that we've been out and applying ice melt downtown, along with all the trails throughout the parks and throughout the trails. No plowing has been required yet, and I am knocking on wood on that one. Around Veterans Day, we hosted the Witham Family YMCA in Memorial Park for the free Veterans Day drive-through lunch, and also helped load another container for the Malawi project. I think that makes number 3 or 4 this year. We really like helping out with that. In mid-November, we hosted a safety meeting for the Christmas parade and discussed important details to make sure the parade was as safe as possible. This was our largest parade to date. We also hosted our Christmas in the Cabin the morning of the parade and spent the month of December pretty much preparing for both those events. We had 3 carriage rides, and I haven't really read all the programs, but I'm sure it's in there. But we had 3 carriage rides this year, which were very well received and filled up real quick. All the park grounds been mowed and mulched several times and put to bed now for winter. Out there this morning, finishing up several of the properties, mowing that and getting those last-minute leaves down, which it was a late drop this year. I have met with the utility contractors out at Reese Park, as we're talking about that. The engineering firm, BF&S, and then I spoke to Damon, the LISA president, also to inform him about all the completion of the lift station, which should be completed this spring. There's quite a bit of work. They're tying in under 39, the bridge there. I don't know if you've seen some of the closures there, but yeah, they're a great group. They're going to put it back better than it has ever been. So they've also included a little parking area on the, what would that be? That would be the east side of the shelter, which I think will help out for all the coaches and kind of overflow parking. And it's been well received too. but it should be complete in the spring of 2025. They're ahead of schedule right now. Finally, I'd like to make this is something that I think Lori needs to do at the end, is make a motion to pay all claims for the end of the year. I put reminders everywhere all over my pages. Since Derek Warren is in the room, I wanted to thank him. The DeWitt family sold their property down at Abner Longley to the city. I really appreciate them reaching out to us first, their family home. It's as you go into Abner Longley where the football field, it's the one right in between the two drives going in and out on Beck Street. And Derek was instrumental on closing the deal on that property. We met with both the family members, and tough decision when you live in a house for so long. But I was very happy that they reached out to us in the way that Derek handled professionally everything through there. And I think January 8th, I think, is the date that we'll take possession of the property, which looking forward to. Unfortunately, just like the street department and this property, and also Thompson Street, which Derek has worked on for, golly, 15 years, 17 years, something like that. That's down at Abner Longley. We'll be taking possession of it pretty soon. We're almost at the closing stage of it. These facilities need torn down. So you talk about finances. We don't have them in hand yet, but that's going to be probably the top priority on these three pieces of property. And to get those facilities torn down and get the eyesores or the family home also, which will make it convenient. But Thompson Street's been broken into so many times, and best to get it cleared out and torn down. And I'm sure Derek will keep on top of that and help us work. The council is already in support of that also. Let me just go on programs and events. The LaGravy Chase was held downtown at Thanksgiving Day, had a super turnout, one of the biggest ones, over 300, I think they're up to now. That was on Thanksgiving Day. Silva's Child Advocacy Center hosted some carriage rides in Memorial Park the day after, on the 8th, that we had our Christmas in the cabin. And they had wonderful weather and a real good turnout. They did evening carriage rides. Those were not free like the parks, but it was very well received. And our 2024 Christmas in the Cabin was a big hit this year. Had a steady crowd the entire time. This year we provided fresh baked cookies, hot chocolate, a craft, and a chance to visit with Santa and Mrs. Claus. I'd like to give a special thank you to our vendors, sponsors, and volunteers. Boone County Cake Company provided the hot chocolate for us. The Boone County Shuckers were great volunteers. They're handing me cookies, which I love them. And our carriage ride sponsors were the Lebanon Parks Foundation, Home National Bank, First Farmers Bank and Trust, and Airy Time Heating and Cooling. And there again, 3 carriage rides, couldn't ask for anything better. We've always had 2 in the past. They were taken very quick on that first day of November, and that's how it goes. They were gone quick. We had people lined up outside the door. But the Christmas parade began that evening at 6 p.m. in Memorial Park. It was one of our biggest parades yet, with 42 floats. This year, Radio Mom and Scott Carney was live broadcasting the parade, which was an awesome new touch to the event. The parade ran safely and smoothly, and we look forward to doing it again next year. Our office staff is in the process of gathering all hiring information for our 2025 summer season. Be on the lookout for important open interview dates that will be announced in the next couple of weeks. And we're looking, I'm not sure how many. We've already had 7 recerts, and what we do is the city pays, or the Parks Department pays for recertification. A certification lasts for 2 years on all the lifeguards. Thomas has got that certification where he can certify lifeguards, which I'm real proud of him. And we've got 7 coming back, which is really encouraging. Trying to get Jessica's daughter to come back too and help us manage. Hopefully, fingers crossed, but she's real busy with school. Hopefully we'll get her back. No pressure, Jessica. Be on the lookout for important open interviews, though. And we're looking at the 15th of January and February. Probably try a night interview process. Might be able to attract some people that ordinarily couldn't come on a Saturday morning. Attached, you will find a list of all programs and events that were held in our parks throughout 2024. Truly just a busy, fun year. And as I can just go through them real quick if you'd like me to, or you want me to or not. It's up to you. I talk enough is what Taylor tells me. Blanket fort building contest, we started out. Snowman building contest, Easter egg hunt, Spring Pickleball League, 2024 Solar Eclipse Festival, and that was huge. I think we had over 4,000 in the park. Just amazing turnout for that. I'll just highlight some. Let me see. Kindergarten Touch a Truck field trip, multiple end of school field trip, gathering at Memorial Park, Seashore Water Park open Memorial Day weekend, Kiwanis Fishing Derby, summer pickleball tournament, 4th of July, Big Ol's Pontiac Cadillac Car Show, Summer of Recovery hosted by Indiana Recovery Network, swim lessons in June and July, fully booked pool party calendar this year, as always. Multiple in service for pool staff, adult lap swim, use the water park over the summer, 4th of July events, new carnival company, Huseman Entertainment came into town. They did a great job. Serve Day, Freedom Church, which is a huge gathering also. Mother-son pool party. Battle of the Barbecue, another big event. Daddy-daughter dance, another big event. Seashore Water Park closed that last weekend of August. Fall Pickleball League, Colonial Market Days, another good one. Eli Lilly, Day of Service, 300 volunteers coming out from Eli Lilly. It was awesome. Corvette Car Show, Lincoln's Lebanon and Civil War reenactment, another great one. Pumpkins in the Park, multiple 5Ks in the park. The Megan Hammerly 5K for one that I recall. Trick or Trot, Benefit for Adoption, Gravy Chase, and youth football, huge. Youth soccer, growing the program. Veterans Day lunch in the park, Christmas in the cabin, Christmas parade. And just, that's some of the things, let alone opening a bike park. And Kevin Krulik has worked on that for 5 years. Another great thing that we got to do, and quite a bit of work. I did want to say our budget's dropped $70,000 from last year, so we have less money to work with in 2025. Also, all the employees as of January 1 will have a nice raise, which is duly they've earned it. That's all I got to say. And we're getting in the game with other departments and other communities. And I got to commend the mayor and the council for looking at it so we can retain some of these great employees that we have that are helping us. I think we started out with 3 new employees in the spring, and we retained 2 of them. One of them is still working with the city. He's working with the utilities. We had 2 others transfer out. So anyway, we are 1 short right now. We'll probably be opening that up in February. We actually have 2 hires, and that'll be coming in February. Right now, it is a slower period, and well, it hasn't been, but hopefully the weather will get real cold and we can get the inside work done and maintenance there. But I just can't say enough for the work of everybody at the park is outstanding. Appreciate all your help up there too for everything. We cut down over 85 trees this year. We planted 35 memorial trees. There again, a lot of the trees are on the trails and the Conservation Club that we aren't going to replace, but we replaced 35 memorial trees, installed 8 benches. As I gave you a couple months ago, I believe all the pools, the visitors that we had there, the 70 seasonal employees that we hire, just a lot on the plate. And again, outstanding crew, great office staff. Can't ask ask more out of Superintendent Billy Smith, who's instrumental in all this, along with the supervisors Joel McMasters and Logan Banks. And all our great city workers, Derek, Kevin, Joe LePage does a great job of communicating out. Our public safety guys are great, and our DPW, we work real well together. Missy Krulick's awesome to work with too, downtown at the heart of Lebanon, and we're good for them too. I mean, all the businesses downtown, but as Kevin said earlier, we have a lot of trails that we're adding to our system. We will take it on and do the best we can, and I think we've done a good job. As you can see through some of the surveys, we take pride in all our maintenance and how we keep things and maintain it. I went to a conference at the last park board meeting. That's why I missed. Couldn't tell you all the compliments we have and people trying to emulate what we're doing. How do you do it? We don't contract our work out. We do it in-house, and they were amazed. And we save a lot of money that way, too. But when you have employees like we do that take pride, that live in our communities, and take pride in it, it shows. And a lot of my peers tell me so. So it's really nice to hear that, let alone all the comments we hear. But it's really nice to hear it when you hear surveys and you don't hear a lot of complaints. You hear how well maintained everything is. I think we've done a good job. Kevin's worked really hard on a lot of our projects that we're completing, and I just thank them all. We have a really good city staff and a park staff that just kills it. So that's all I had.
John, last month during the meeting, a gal came in and was, on the agenda and expressed concerns about the maintenance
Yes, Kitty
level.
Park,
Yes.
Park over there, yes. And I was listening to that while I was at the conference. Anyway, I heard that the next morning that we were waiting on a bearing in that merry-go-round. And if you know us, we're very resourceful. Couldn't get a bearing. Not that the companies don't have the bearing, but if they put that bearing in, then they're liable, and nobody wanted the liability. So we yanked it out that next morning. Billy had it out by 9 o'clock in the morning. And again, our master plan, not that you have to go by it, but we are going by that. That's a park that is really not convenient for anybody other than that neighborhood. And green space, what's wrong with green space? You can play soccer, you can play football, you can do things like that. I understand they love a shelter, but it's kind of hard to even get the mowers. I mean, there's room there. The sidewalk that's going to it is parked in between two mailboxes, so the parking is inconvenient. I don't know that that's ADA compliant on the sidewalk. So we either make investments on that, which we, again, it's money restraints in a lot of it. As the equipment breaks down, we've been taking it out. I was a little put out when she said we weren't maintaining the parks, because we do. We're on those parks every week and spraying it's pea gravel in those. It's not the certified playground mulch. And over the years, what I have had to face with, or the park system, is we had split-railed fence and very well maintained. Well, it got broken, kept getting broken, so guess what? It's coming out. And as things got, and some of them are used, like the little springy thing she was talking about. Yeah, we took them out. As soon as they were broken, if we couldn't replace them, we just remove them. And that's what our master plan called for, which we did have a lot of input on that. I feel for her. I understand that she has some childhood memories, and several of them do, and they have quite a few kids. Hopefully this new park system, they'll be able to have access with our trails that will connect to it. And does that help you? Does that kind of explain?
I just wondered I went over to take a look at
well,
it,
and I
wanted to see it for myself.
It's pretty hard. When I first took the job, I drove by it 3 times. It's on Thomas Drive. There's a little sidewalk, and there was a split rail fence, which isn't there. There's a new homeowner, they put a fence up. Well, the identification is way inside the park, once at the end of the sidewalk. And it says Kitty Park. Well, the fence is blocking that. We haven't taken the sign down, so if you squeeze through it, you can kind of see it. There is a grill out there. There's a swing set. It used to have the only teeter-totter, which I was pretty cool. I thought that was cool, but again, some of the vandalism, some of it, and I love kids hanging out, and I understand her passion for it. I think Brett even recommended, hey, raise the money yourself and we'll put something there. I think you got to think about how we are spread out, and not to say that it isn't necessary, but this is in the middle of a neighborhood, and other communities have their own homeowners association, which she could fire back up. They had one in prior to that. They also had a pond and this park that the addition gave to the city. Well, the city ended up, and I think we have worked on sending letters around the community. How many years ago, Derek? 15? Yeah, to see if anybody would want the grounds, but obviously it'll raise their property value or, their assessment, so they'd have to pay more in taxes. But we really would love to give it back to the, to that group. But they need to get a homeowners association, raise their own money, and take care of it. Yes, that is gone. They did give the pond away to homeowners. They did take it over, but nobody wants this little section of property. It's about a half acre. And anyway, yeah, it's a little bit much on the parks. We don't mind taking care of it, mowing. We have 2 other properties that we do like that, where they were condemned properties that we do take care of those, go in and mow them real quick. But it takes more time to unload and pull up the equipment than it does to actually maintain it. But we do spray it. We're on it a regular basis. So we do maintain. I did leave that there. We put a cone on it several times. That got taken. That's my bad. That was all my fault.
I think her maintenance comments
Yeah.
were more about the equipment.
Yes, and it's
that
older.
was my perception.
Yeah,
anyway.
and all our equipment's older. I mean, Memorial Parks is 1981. So was Abner Longley prior to that, and we patched it together as best we could, keeping in mind safety, but at the same token, something for the kids to play on. I mean, if we yank everything out that was not 100% code, we wouldn't have much equipment left, to be quite honest. And I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah, so is somebody getting back with her?
I really haven't heard from her. I know that I had spoke to her, and I'd called her a few times, and then she came and spoke here, and I think that was the last of it. I think she might have sent an email, but not to me. And if she does, I will respond. I know it's tough for her, and I get it, and a couple of the other neighbors, and she had a petition, I believe, which I feel for them. But our master plan doesn't call for that unless you give me direction. And again, it's financing. I mean, everything. I think it was earlier about this park of how we're going to finance it. We have an addition to the park, or a park, Seashore Water Park, $11 million. It's sitting on a shelf, but we have a plan to go ahead and do an addition there. And when funding comes around, or if we can find it, the whole reason we do this planning is for the city council to figure out how they're going to budget these funds and how they're going to pay for each of these things going on. So that's where we are on the funding. Will we get it? Hopefully in time. And like Derek said, piece it together, maybe do phases or what have you. Kevin's real good about phase. We've starting the phase of the trail around Abner Longley too. Yeah. And I think Derek has worked on this park since December, I think, of last year is when we started, if I'm not mistaken. I think Mayor, you and I went down and talked to him. Kevin's worked on the bike park for 5 years. I mean, yeah. And again, a lot of work goes in and a lot of planning. Eventually, we'll come up with the funding, but that's where we are. And the council wants to have their budget so they can go ahead and start setting aside. With the growth we're having, we're hoping for more, availability of funding. We have the park impact fees, which is quite a bit. That's all for new purchases, like, things that we're doing, like purchasing the property down at Abner Longley. Yeah, but you can't maintenance. You can't use that money for maintenance, unfortunately, to replace things or what have you. It's for the growth. I've done a lot of talking. Taylor's going to hate me. She has to do all the minutes, so she has to listen to me talk all this time. But there you go. We're set up for 2021 or 2026 and ready to go. Going to be another busy year, I believe. So.
About 25.
Oh, 20, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Again, I spoke too long.
You didn't talk that
It'll be
long.
26 by the time I get done talking. Thank you, Derek. There you
It's been a
go.
long meeting, but
It
not that
has,
long.
yeah. No, I thank you all, and I hope you all have a good Christmas. If anybody has any recommendations or comments, give me a buzz or give anybody a call at the parks. We'll be happy to try and satisfy them. There you go.
Entertain a motion that we approve for the Parks Department to pay the claims through December 31st.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the next thing is a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for joining us and hope everyone has a happy holiday.